What's up, YouTube? Today I'm gonna be covering a duel between me and my little brother. Prophecies versus Crystal Beast. I'm on the right with Prophecies. My little brother is on the left with Crystal Beast. So starting off, he summons the Sapphire Pegasus, and he puts a Ruby Carbuncle into his spell and trap card zone. Um, this is a fun match for me and him because these are our favorite decks. He sets one in his back row and he passes. So I go and I just end up setting one monster. I activate Spellbook of Secrets, which allows me to search any Spellbook card. I search Spellbook Tower and I activate it. And then I pass. He checks his back row and he sets one, and then he goes and he summons Crystal Beast Topaz Tiger. And then he went and destroyed my Stoic. It cut out for a second, and Stoic's effect let me search out my Prophecy, or my Justice of Prophecy. So he passes after attacking with Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus, and then I draw and use Tower's effect to draw a second card. I'm thinking, and I reveal the 3 power Master and Eternity to special summon the High Priestess, and my little brother activates Torrential Tribute. Unfortunately, I do not have Spellbook of Wisdom in my hand. I then summon the Justice that I just searched out, and I use power to give it 1,000 attack, and I attack for 26. So then, since it's the end phase of my turn, I banish Justice to add one Spellbook spell card and a level 5 or higher light or dark spellcaster type monster from my deck to my hand. So I add the Sorcier de Flor and the Spellbook of Secrets. I don't have 3 High Priestess yet, but I have some good substitutes. So he uses Crystal Promise to special summon Ruby Carbuncle to get the others out, but I effect Veeler his Ruby Carbuncle, so he just gets his one. And then he sets a monster. He passes, I draw, and then I use the Tower's effect, and I put Spellbook of Power on the bottom of my deck to draw an extra. I really like Tower. It's such a nice card and really helps build up plays. I use the Spellbook of Secrets, and I get out Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. He's the only monster out of the Spellbook Prophecy archetype that actually has Spellbook in its name, so you can search him out with the Spellbook of Secrets. And then I go and I set Spellbook Magician. I believe my little brother made it a little joke. He was like, "Oh, that's not obvious or anything." He summons Amber Mammoth, and he attacks the Spellbook Magician, so I get my search. When it's normal or flipped up, normal summoned or flipped face up, you can search a Spellbook spell card. So I search the secrets to assure that I can have a monster to play next turn. So then he passes. I draw, and then I use the Tower's effect to draw again after putting Spellbook of Secrets on the bottom of my deck. I blind MST's face down, and luckily I hit a good card. I hit Mere Force. And at this point, I have a lot of cards in my hand, and I'm also holding Tragodia. I had 8 cards in my hand, and I didn't want to have to discard anything, so I set 2 spell cards. I play a trapless build, so the only trap I play is Treacherous Trap Hole, so I believe I set a Magical Dimension and a Spellbook of Fate. So holding Trag, I know that my little brother's going to attack, but I did not expect him to get the Sapphire Pegasus back out with the Crystal Promise. So he searches and he puts another Sapphire Pegasus in his spell and trap card zone. He's thinking here, and then he goes and attacks with Amber Mammoth first for 17, or maybe Sapphire Pegasus. I'm not completely sure. But then I drop Trag, and he's at 3,000. Trag is such a nice card to have in a Prophecy deck because a lot of the time you have a very big hand, and then sometimes you'll be left with an open field when you use Justice. So after that, he passes. I draw, and then I realize I don't have any Spellbook spell cards left in my graveyard to use the Tower's effect. But I do use Secrets, and I search out the Spellbook Magician, and I just normal summon him, so I don't have to shuffle my deck, and then I get another search. And then I get out Spellbook Star Hall, but I don't put my deck away because then I use Spellbook of the Master. I control the Spellcaster, and I reveal the Spellbook Star Hall I just searched, and I copied Spellbook of Secrets to search the Wisdom. Honestly, I don't know why I didn't search Life yet, because this play could have been a lot better, but after what happened, I'm happy that I didn't get Spellbook of Life yet. So I checked my face down, and I realized I had a Magical Dimension, so I tribute my Spellbook Magician, and I special summon an Endymion from my hand. And then with Magical Dimensions effect, I destroy his Sapphire Pegasus. I was thinking about it for a second. I have Endymion and Sorcier in my hand, but I decided to go with Endymion. So then I used Endymion's effect, and I discarded the Spellbook Star Hall, and I destroyed his face down monster, which was a very good move of mine because it ended up being Nova Summoner, which he uses to special summon Ruby Carbuncle, so he can special summon all of the ones in his spell and trap card zone. I used power on Endymion, so he's at 37, and I attacked over his Amber Mammoth to do 2,000. And because of power's effect, since Endymion destroyed a monster by battle, I got a search off. And I ended up searching the Life, so it was in my hand. And then I made a joke here. My Tragodia at this point, he was at 3,000, 36 maybe, and I just completely ran the shit over his Ruby Carbuncle, so we were laughing about that. So I pass. Now Michael has the 4 Crystal Beasts in his spell and trap card zone now, which is always dangerous because then he drops the Crystal Abundance, which he decides to do here. So Crystal Abundance, this is an older deck. A lot of people don't know what it does. If you have 4 Crystal Beasts in your spell and trap card zone, it destroys everything on the field. And then according to how many of your opponent's cards that were destroyed, you can special summon that many number of Crystal Beasts from your graveyard. So he destroyed 4 of my cards, so he gets to special summon 4. But he destroyed my tower, which allows me to special summon a monster or spellcaster from my deck whose level is equal to or less than the number of spell cards in my graveyard, or spell books. So I normally just go for Stoic because he lets me get a level 3 to my hand. And then I know I'm going to get crushed here, so at this point I should have just scooped. I didn't have that many life points left, and I knew as soon as he played Abundance that was going to be game, because even though I had Endymion and Tragodia on the field and they're both pretty powerful, it's not hard for Crystal Beast deck to come back when they have a lot of cards in the spell and trap card zone, because they do swarm pretty easily if you have the right combinations. And with Crystal Abundance, you wreck your opponent. So at this point, he decides to attack with Topaz Tiger, and he attacks my Stoic. And I was waiting to do the search because I thought it was going to be game. He attacks with Amber Mammoth and then both his Sapphire Pegasus, and it was game, so I just scooped. So now we're starting game 2. My little brother beat me, so I go first. If you're wondering, the phone down there, my little brother's iPhone, we have a life point calculator. So I go first, and I just set a monster. I set a Stoic, And then my little brother goes. He sets 2 back row, and he summons Topaz Tiger. He attacks, and I get my search off of Stoic. I add a level 3 Prophecy monster from my deck to my hand. And I add Temperance of Prophecy to my hand. And he passes. Then I draw. I summon the Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, and I get a search. And I just go for the secrets. And then I just decide to use the Spellbook of Secrets so I can get out Spellbook of Life, because I am holding High Priestess at this point. So if she goes, I want her back. So I reveal Life, Wisdom, and the Fate to special summon High Priestess. And my little brother chains Fiendish Chain onto her. I guess he didn't see the Wisdom, so she's unaffected by traps for the turn, and I use her effect to use the Wisdom as pop material to destroy his Fiendish Chain. I attack Topaz Tiger with High Priestess for 900, and then I attack with the Spellbook Magician for another 500. My little brother made a funny remark about the great attack of Spellbook Magician. I pass, and he summons Amber Mammoth, and he attacks Spellbook Magician for 1200. So he passes. I drew a Monster Reborn, so I use Spellbook of Life because I'm not concerned about getting my High Priestess back. So I banish a Stoic to get my Spellbook Magician back, so he's level 3 now. And then I summon the Temperance to overlay. I'm not sure what he's holding, and frankly, his deck has a lot of surprises in it, so I play defensively and I go into Zen mains. Looking back, I really don't know what I was doing. I was trying to play defensively, and I wasn't worried about losing my High Priestess, so I guess that's why I did it. But so then after I used Life, I banished it to destroy his Mirror Force, and then I attacked Amber Mammoth with my High Priestess. So at this point, it was 6,800 to 5,800. I was winning. And my little brother activates the Ancient City Rainbow Ruins, the Crystal Beast field spell. And then he sets a monster and ends his turn. I draw, and I was thinking, and I summoned a Justice of Prophecy. When your opponent has a dead draw and you have High Priestess on the field, it's really easy to take the game. I banish the secrets and destroy his face down, and then I attack. I was supposed to do 41, but with 2 Crystal Beasts in your spell and trap card with Ancient City Rainbow Ruins, you can half the battle damage from one monster, so you half the battle damage from High Priestess. So at this point, my little brother had a Rainbow Dragon and 1 Crystal Abundance in his hand, and he ended up drawing this. So he couldn't do anything, and I switched my Zen mains into attack mode and attack for game. So game 3 here, and my little brother beat me, so I start. Oh, I'm sorry, I completely forgot. My little brother beat me. I beat my little brother, so he goes first. I was thinking game 1. So he summons Amber Mammoth and sets a back row and passes. I set 1 and pass. That's a typical first move for me. I normally set the Stoic and pass. So he sets the second back row and he attacks with Amber Mammoth. And like always, there's a Stoic. I made a joke about. I said, "Can you guess?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know, the Stoic." So it was funny. But I searched the Temperance. And then my little brother passes. So this was a bit of misplay on my part. Thinking back on it, I should have just summoned Temperance so I could have gotten the High Priestess out early in the game. But I didn't know what his back row was, so I didn't know. This was me thinking about it. I was like, Temperance or Justice? But I didn't know what his back row was, so I went with Justice. And then I added the tower to my hand. I knew that I was going to get the High Priestess at the end phase with Justice effect, so I didn't play the tower because I wanted 3 in my hand. So then I use the power on Justice, so she's at 26, and I attack over his Hammer Mammoth for 900. And then because of power, I got a search off from my Justice. Now this is another mistake. I forgot I had so many cards in my hand, so I just went straight into my end phase and banished her to add life and the High Priestess to my hand, but then I had 8 cards in my hand. So I ended up having to discard 2. I discarded the Temperance and my Sorcia de Flor from my hand, which wasn't crucial. Sorcia de Flor is a really good card, but its effect only happens once. I prefer to get the High Priestess out, but I ended up, the Temperance could have helped me out, but I do think I was holding Endymion as well. I don't know why, but for some reason in my deck I always end up drawing like all 3 of my high level monsters. But anyway, it was his turn, so he uses Crystal Promise and summons his Hammer Mammoth, and then uses Crystal Release to give it 800 attack, and attacks with 2500. So then he passes, I draw, and now that I have the High Priestess in my hand, I reveal the Wisdom, Secrets, and Tower for High Priestess. And he saw the Wisdom, but he uses Torrential, and I use Wisdom. So he destroys his own monster, and because of release, he gets to put a Sapphire Pegasus from his deck into his Spell and Trap card zone. So I activated the tower, and I already used Wisdom, but I always like to have a Wisdom on hand when I have High Priestess out, so I searched out a second one. I set a Spellbook Magician and a Wisdom, and I attacked. Kind of ballsy there. I didn't use her effect. So he used Crystal Beacon since he has 2 Spell and Trap cards, or Crystal Beast in his Spell and Trap card zone. He can special summon 1 from his deck. So when Ruby Carbuncle special summon, he can special summon all of them from it, or as many as possible from his Spell and Trap card zone. So he special summons the Sapphire Pegasus and the Hammer Mammoth, and gets another Sapphire Pegasus from his deck into his Spells and Traps. So he puts Mage Power on his Pegasus, so he's at 33, and he attacks over my High Priestess for 800. Excuse me. And then he attacks my face down with Hammer Mammoth, so I get a search off from the Spellbook Magician. So I search the power, because I know I'm going to have to get over that Sapphire Pegasus. And I wanted to take out his back row because I don't trust his back row. So I use the Tower's effect, and I put a Spellbook of Secrets on the bottom of my deck to draw an extra. And I actually start with a Dark Hole, and my little brother uses Starlight Road. And he doesn't actually have Stardust Dragon, but Starlight Road's still a really nice card because it protects you from stuff like Dark Hole. So that kind of ruined my plan, because I was just going to go for High Priestess and get some damage off, but I ended up still playing life, and I banished the Temperance that I put in there earlier to special summon my High Priestess back. So I use her effect, and I banished my Spellbook of Power to destroy his face down, which was Utopian Aura. He XYZs a lot in that deck, so I understand why he has that on there, but I use power, so she's at 35, so I could get over his Sapphire Pegasus for 700, since I destroyed one of his Spells and Traps. I went down 500, but because of power, I got a search off, and I searched the Eternity, because I knew sooner or later I was going to need something back from my banished zone. So then my little brother activates Ancient City, Rainbow Ruins, so my tower goes to the grave. It didn't really help him much in this play. He didn't have much, so he just changed his aim remain with the defense and passed. I drew, And then I used our effect and I banished my tower to destroy his Amber Mammoth. And good thing I got out the Eternity because I used it to get my tower back and I just played it again. Because I don't like him having that the field spell with all the effects that he gets. So at this point he has 3,900 life points and he's trying to decide whether or not he wants to tribute Ruby Carbuncle to negate the tower's activation. Because when you have three, if you have three in your spell and trap card zone, once per turn you can negate the activation of a spell or trap. But he decides not to because he wants some defense. So I summon the Spellbook Magician to get a search off. He has the Ruby Carbuncle and it has like 400 defense, so I know I can get over it with the Spellbook Magician. I search a Spellbook Star Hall and I use it because it gives all my spellcasters a good boost. So I attacked with the Spellbook Magician, and then I attacked for 25. Now this is dangerous. He has 4 in his spell and trap card zone, and I don't like that. I looked at my face and I accidentally flipped it up. It was a Stoic. So this, I was saying, please no, and there it is, the Crystal Abundance. So this is a big mistake on my part. I chained the Wisdom for spells, but what that does is it automatically puts a counter on my Star Hall. So, and because of the tower, I could have special summoned one, and then I could have also added a level 1 to my hand. I already had an effect wheeler in my hand, but it'd be really nice to have the second one. But I just did not recognize that in my mind, and in the long run, it cost me the duel. So I didn't recognize that, and I didn't add the effect wheeler to my hand. And while he's doing all of his Crystal Abundance stuff, I decided to special summon a Justice. Since I activated the Wisdom, if he doesn't destroy my Justice, I know that I can banish it to add a Spellbook spell card and my Endymion from my deck to my hand. So now I know something's coming because he's got 3 level 4s, and he runs the Vylon de Sigma and Shockmaster in his deck, and I'm not a fan of either of them. So he reaches for the extra deck, so I know something's going to go down. So he overlays the Amber Mammoth and the 2 Sapphire Pegasus, and unfortunately he gets out Vylon de Sigma, and I have one of my effect wheelers, so he can't use the effect to detach to equip my High Priestess to it. So at this point, my little brother is debating whether or not he wants to ram into my High Priestess because he knows that he doesn't want it on the field. So at this point, I don't have any cards in my hand, so the Justice was a good play on my part so I can get some cards in my hand. And he decides to ram into my High Priestess, which I expected. And he activates Crystal Blessing to put 2 from his spell and trap card zone 2 from his graveyard into a spell and trap, so he has 4 again. He already used his Crystal Abundance. I know he has another one, but it's the end phase. So since I activated Wisdom, I can banish her, and I add Endymion and what did I add? I can't remember what I added in my hand. I think it was a Spellbook of Fate. So I draw for my turn. And I drew a Spellbook Magician, and I need some cards on the field. So I end up setting the Spellbook Magician and my Spellbook of Fate, because Spellbook of Fate is a quick play, and I didn't want him to swim the field and get something on the field that I couldn't handle. So this is me checking my graveyard, because, well, I don't know why. I guess you check your graveyard sometimes. So this is me thinking about it. I really don't want to just set 2 cards and leave it at that, but that's what I have to do. So I set the Fate and I set the Spellbook Magician. So thankfully for me, my little brother just passes. He can't do much on his turn, and he's not going to try and attack with the Ruby Carbuncle. So checks his graveyard, and then he realizes he's got nothing to do. So at this point, he lets out a big sigh and just passes. So I draw, and at this point, I drew the Tragodia, which is really nice to have. So I have a little more confidence. So I flip up the Spellbook Magician, and I search out. I wanted to see whether or not I had more Spellbook Magicians in my deck. I had already played 2, but I was going to get out of Secrets and use it to get another Spellbook Magician so I can go into Gachi for some good defense, but I already used the 2. So I thought about it for a minute, and I only run 1 Eternity, and I knew I would have to get my life back somehow. So I was looking at a Spellbook of the Master, and I ended up adding it to my hand. Now, I wasn't thinking too straight. I didn't look at my hand. I didn't have any other spellbooks in my hand, so I couldn't activate the Master to get life back at this point because I'd set the Spellbook of Fate because I was kind of being precautionary. So at this point, I realized it, and I said, fuck, and my little brother goes, oh, okay, that's good for me. So I attacked over his Ruby Carbuncle, and I know I'm going to have to banish the Spellbook of Life eventually. And I don't want that Ruby Carbuncle there, and I don't want him to have 4 in his Spell and Trap card zone. So I activate Fate, and I banish my Tower, my Spellbook Star Hall, and my Spellbook of Life. And I banish his Ruby Carbuncle. So if he manages to special summon it, he won't get because I don't want him to special summon it and get the 3 Sapphire Pegasus back, and I don't want him to have Crystal Abundance. So he draws, and unfortunately he draws the Monster Reborn, and he gets him Ruby Carbuncle anyway. So at this point, if I had that effect Veeler I was talking about earlier, I could have effect Veelered the Ruby Carbuncle, which really just would have helped me out a lot. I did have the Trag in hand, but this allows him to set up for his final move, which finished me off. So he adds Cobalt Eagle, another Ruby Carbuncle, and an Emerald Tortoise into his Spell and Trap card zone because of the 3 Sapphire Pegasus. So he attacks Spellbook Magician with one of his Pegasus, and I take 13 damage, and I drop the Trag in defense. And if I didn't draw the Trag, it would have been game, because I only had, I think I had like 2,400 life points left at this point. And he was only at 1,200 attack, so he did manage to do 1,800 more damage, but it kept me in the game for 1 more turn. So main phase 2, he goes into his Shockmaster. Now this is what really fucks me over, because I was holding Spellbook of the Master and Endymion in my hand, but so he goes into Shockmaster, and as any smart person would do, playing someone with a trapless build, he detaches and declares spells, so I couldn't activate spells during my turn, and that really messed me up because it was all on my next draw, and I ended up drawing the Monster Reborn. So here's where I scoop. I just said that's game because I think I had like 900 life points or something. I don't know, something small. I kind of explained my play, but that really messed me up. And if I had caught the effect Veeler thing earlier, then that would have been game for me, I think, because I would have drawn the Monster Reborn and I could have gotten my my High Priestess back. But we shake hands. It was a good duel. So, and that's it. So hope you enjoy the video. Tell me what you think, and there'll be more matchups on the way. Thanks for watching.